I am really excited to bring you our very first Podio lesson on the Academy. So what we're going to do today is we are going to talk about why we use Podio and how we use Podio. Specifically, we're going to talk about client interaction and CRM in this particular lesson. And we're going to track the following all the way through today. At a very high level, we're not going to dive down and actually build the applications today, but we're going to show you the general workflow. And then coming up in further lessons, we're going to show you how we actually put this all together. So what happens first is somebody comes to our website, they fill out an estimate form, which then goes into our CRM. We track that all the way through, and then that goes into our client workspace where we share information with our clients and collaborate with our clients. Then when we're done the project, we have the client go back to our website, fill out a feedback form that then feeds back into our CRM. So it's going to be a really interesting lesson today. I am sure you will learn a lot, not only about Podio, but also about workflows. I hope you really enjoyed this lesson today. Now, I promised I would tell you the main reasons why we use Podio now. Let me share those with you. First of all, we wanted to make sure that we had something that was infrastructure stable. One thing that was really important to both me and my remote staff is that we're able to access the system when we're out of the office and away from the office, and there might be nobody actually in the office directly. And if something changed internally in the office and there was nobody there to fix those changes, and we suddenly became disconnected from our database, that would basically effectively kill our productivity. And that was something that was really important to us so that we could always have access to our system. And basically we call that ubiquitous access. And that's something that the cloud does. So that's number one for us, was infrastructure stable, ubiquitous access. Number two is we didn't want to have any issues with syncing. We didn't want to have multiple copies of everything everywhere and having things syncing up. We wanted only one copy of information at any one given point in one central location. So that totally annihilated the issue of having to sync things. Number three was we wanted to be able to collaborate with people, again, when we're out of the office, and link up emails to things inside of our system. And that's not something that we could do with our previous system. We had to come into the office and then link things up. And in this fast-paced world, we wanted something that would allow us the ability to have things go into our system when we're actually out on the road, right from our iPhones or our iPads. Next thing we wanted to do was we needed to minimize data entry. And before, what happened was an estimate request would come in and we would have to cut and paste and cut and paste and cut and paste and cut and paste to a whole bunch of different areas in order for us to get that information where we wanted it to be. Now, the customer or the potential customer fills out an estimate request form on our website, and that goes in there. And the only data entry that we have to do is to create a person. I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. And then the next one was collaborate effectively with clients externally outside of our company, and also with internal staff as well as outside subcontractors. And before, in the system that we were using, we could not do that. There was no way to bring them into the system and work on a project with us. We couldn't share that information as effectively as we wanted it to, and we couldn't communicate really effectively on that and track the progress of everything. So that was something that was really important to us as well. And then number one for us, even though it's the last thing, it's like we saved the best for last, is we wanted it to work the way that we do. We didn't want to have something that determined the way things were set up. We wanted to be able to be free to create our own workflows and to do things our own way. And so that's why we finally ended up, choosing Podio. And another reason for us was that Citrix acquired Podio last year in April. Now, Citrix is a company that I've been doing business with for more than 4 years. We use their GoToMeeting. And if you've worked with us before one-on-one, you'll realize that we've used that with you. And that's been a fabulous product for us. We've had wonderful support, good customer service, and so that already made us like Citrix. And secondarily, we really like their philosophy of, we believe that your work and your personal life are not mutually exclusive. And that's something that, if you've done any of my lessons before, something that's really important to me. Now, today we're going to stick with our agenda, but coming up in further lessons, I'll talk to you about handling life management inside of Podio and how I think it's actually far superior than what I was using before. And also, if you visit our website at macangel.com/infrastructure/Podio, or rather that's what it is for now. Pretty soon it'll be residualreach.com/infrastructure/Podio. So depending on whether that change has gone over, you'll go to that website. But there is a video there that I've put up of the Citrix Synergy Conference in Barcelona. And it talks about where Citrix is going and also where Podio is going and some of the exciting new things that are coming up with Podio soon. So if you want to look into it more, definitely those are going to be some areas that are going to help you with it. So let's get into how we actually use it. So if you go to the front page of our website, Residual Reach or macangel.com, and you scroll down, you'll notice some estimate request forms here on the website. And when you click on those estimate request forms, they take you to a form that has been embedded in one of our pages. And when people fill that out, you'll notice at the very bottom that it says that it's a web form from Podio, okay? And so what we did was we created that app inside of Podio, and then we put the web form on the website. Let me show you how that works. Now, for the moment, we're inside of Podio here. And for the moment, I don't want you to pay attention to this area over here. So I'm actually just going to drag it over here because I want to really focus your attention today. And let's drag this out here so that we're focusing your attention. So what we did was we created an app. You can also think of this as a form in this case. And this form is an estimate request. So we created that first. We're not going to go into the creation of apps today because we're going to basically talk about the workflow. But after we created the app, what we did was we went in and clicked on web form. And there we can actually get the code to embed that in our website. So that's how it actually got onto our website. Now, some interesting things are going to happen when we receive that estimate from the website. First of all, because I am following this app, I'm going to get a notification that there's a new estimate. Also, because of the way that I've set up the app, if I go into Modify App, and I go down to Tasks here, and I've also had it assign a task for me to qualify that lead when an estimate is filled out. So I am going to get a notification in the Mountain Lion notifications window if I'm using Safari or Chrome. I'm also going to get a notification on my iPhone, and I'm going to get a notification on my iPad. And additionally, if I want, I can also get a notification in my email. So I'm going to get a notification that there's a new estimate and that I need to follow up with that. Also, if I was using a PC or if I was using an Android, I would get my notifications there. And you can set up the notifications, turn them on or turn them off, set them up how you like. But the important thing is that you get notified when something important comes in. Now, if you don't want notification, you can also stop following an app. Additionally, because of the way that I've set up that app, that estimate request is showing up in the activity stream. And so activity stream you may be familiar with from using either Twitter or Facebook. You've got a stream rolling by when people do things, okay? And so this is the social part of Podio, is that whenever an app does something and we allow that to be posted to the stream, then everybody who is inside of a workspace will know that that estimate request has been modified, for instance, 35 minutes ago. So now we've talked about workspace for the first time. What exactly is a workspace? Basically, a workspace is an area where you share information with somebody else. That person may be, or those people may be internal staff, they may be external staff, they may be external contractors, they might be clients, they might be, in the case if you're using this for personal management, they may be a team or a household. Basically, a workspace is an area for people to share and to get work done. So we can bring people into a workspace so that they can work on things with us. It's a collaborative environment. So the components that we have are apps and we have our workspaces. All right? And like I said, an app, if we want it to, can submit to the activity stream here so that everybody in the office knows that that item, for instance, has been edited 35 minutes ago. So if somebody has a comment on it, they can jump into that, or maybe they're excited about that, they can like it, or maybe they need to do something on it, they can create a task attached to that. Okay? So now let's actually go into the Kevin Smith's estimate request. And so now I'm pretending as if he just filled this out, even though he actually did it a little bit earlier. So he filled this out and he gave us the information on the web form. So at this point, what would I do with this? The first thing I would want to do is link it up with a person. If the person is not created inside of Podio, then I'd want to create that person first. And let's create a new person, okay? So what I would do is go into my People app and I would click on Add Person and I would say Kevin Smiths. Now, here's an interesting thing about having those web forms. When the client fills out a web form, it puts that contact block information into Podio. So now I can type in Kevin, and there he is. And now I've got all of his contact information. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to cut and paste any information. It's immediately there in the area that I want it to. Now in this case, he would be a prospect, he'd be a Podio prospect, and that's pretty much all the information that we would have on him for right now. So that's the extent of my data entry. How about that? Isn't that nice? And so now what I want to do is I want to link up that estimate with this person, Kevin Smith. So I type in Kevin Smiths here. And there we go. Now it's linked up to him. Boom. Okay. So now I have an estimate linked up to a person. Let me show you what that looks like from the person object. So I'm going to go to View Person, which is now going to change me over to the People app. And at the bottom of this, you can see here's my estimate request. Now here's a whole bunch of other things right now that are related to Kevin, but for right now, we're just going to focus on the estimate request. So there that is right there, and I can click on it and it's going to take me right back into the estimate request. Okay, so now from a workflow standpoint, what would I want to do? With Podio's new item share feature, what I can actually do now is I can invite him into this item. And let me show you how I would do that. I would click on Kevin Smith's right there to get his email address, and I'm going to click share. And I only want to share this particular item, this particular estimate with him, rather than inviting him into the whole CRM. So I'm just going to click on that, pop that in there. And I am actually going to see if Kevin is around. Now I've quickly invited him into this item. And in this case, we've already gone all the way through and started an implementation with him, but I'm going to get him to comment on this so that you can see how that interaction would go. And so I've written a message and I click on share. Now what's going to happen is he's actually going to receive an email, and then he's going to be brought into this item inside of Podio. And whenever he comments on the bottom here, I am going to see that right here, as well as when I comment back to him, he's going to see that information. Now the reason we love that is because if you can imagine the amount of emails that go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth about something that people are working on. And so you have an email and then you have to link it up with something and another email, and then you have to link it up with that. Whereas if we bring people inside of Podio, we can just have our discussion and there's no linking, it's already linked up. When I make a comment, he gets notified. When he makes a comment, he gets notified. Now also in here, I can ask a question, I can share a question, have him answer it. I can share a link, or I can actually add a file. So for instance, in this particular scenario, what might be helpful for me is I might want to see one of his workflows or one of his spreadsheets and the way that he works. And so I could ask him for that here, and then he could actually upload it right here, end of story. So now we've taken this conversation about this estimate and completely pulled it out of email. The conversation now lives here attached to the estimate that we're actually talking about, so that we can both go back and look at the information and discuss it. It's a much more effective way of working together. Now above, you'll notice that this is related to the opportunities object. Now, Kevin only has access to this. He won't actually have access to this opportunity, but anybody in the CRM workspace will. So let's actually go into that opportunity. So we can see the details about this opportunity. We can see that we've actually already won it, and we can see here that we linked it up to the contact, Kevin Smith's, and also we linked the estimate request. Now here's another nice thing about the way that we linked the information. So when I click on this, I actually have full access to that estimate request. I don't actually have to jump out into another object. I can actually read everything that I need to read about it right from within inside of this object. So I'm reading the estimate inside of the opportunity. That's another thing that I just adore about Podio, is the ability to bring data to you. And so if we scroll down here a little bit further, we can also see the expected value and the actual value. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how those are actually calculated in another lesson. Now, if we scroll down a little bit further, you'll notice that we have some quotes here. So we actually use Quote Roller to do our proposals. And if I click on this, I can see that the proposal was sent out at 4:01 and it was accepted pretty much the exact same minute. It was pretty quick about that. But let's click really quickly out and have a look at the proposals that we can do with Quote Roller. Now we're in Quote Roller, and what you're seeing here is an example of the quote that he received. So he received an email with a link, and it took him here. So he could see the introduction about our company. He could see the way that we work, so that he understood the way that we work together. And then the estimate, and then the scheduling and payment. And you can modify these to look however you want. What I liked about Quote Roller was not only that I could design a quote or an estimate to send out to somebody in any way that I wanted to, but when they actually view it, I get feedback knowing that they actually viewed it, and also when they accept it. So it gives me a lot more control in that whole process. And of course, a big bonus was that it integrates with Podio. Now you'll notice that that is linked to a sale. And if we look at this particular sale, you'll notice that I linked it up again to the person and also the opportunity. Now over on the right here, you'll also notice that when I received that sale, I created a task to create a client workspace. And if we actually click on the client here, we'll see that I've actually linked that client workspace up to Kevin. So now we're going to talk about the client workspace. So for instance, I've gone all the way through, and if we look at it, I've gone through the estimate, I created a person, and then we created an opportunity, we created a quote, and now we have a sale. I've skipped the conversations for right now, because right now what I'm wanting to help you get is the continuity. So now we're in basically the implementation stage. So let's go to that client workspace right now. I can simply click on that, and it's going to take me into this client workspace. Now, the client workspace, the way that we use it in our business, is we use it to share and communicate information with our clients. So for instance, if I click here in client sessions, I can see all the client sessions that we've had. So for instance, let's go back to this one that we had on the 3rd. I can see that I use GoToMeeting, and I can actually start that meeting right from within this appointment. And me and Kevin were at that meeting. And now I put the original agenda in, and then I put the notes in. And I linked that up to Kevin, and I also linked that up to the implementation back in our CRM. And I also linked it to the client account. I'll tell you what all of that means shortly. But all of that information, Kevin can actually see that, and he can make any comments that he needs to see on that. Or if he wonders what we did back on a specific date, he can actually go right in there to that meeting, and he can see everything that we did. So I'm providing a much higher level of service than I ever could before, because I couldn't communicate that information to my clients before. What I would have to do possibly is take my notes and then maybe email them to the client. But then they couldn't really respond back unless they wanted to respond back. And then of course we go up to all that whole linking thing again. Whereas here, every client that we have can actually log into their space and see everything that we've done with them, which is wonderful. It also helps us in collecting information from our clients. So for instance, I had him go into the Podio users here, and I had him add some information here so that it helped us in the design of the system. And I had him fill out forms here to give us his workflows. And I had him fill out the workspaces to give us information on the workspaces and who needs access to what. So again, having that ability to externally collaborate is absolutely amazing. I mean, if I had to manage all of this inside of email and attach it to a whole bunch of different things, I would probably go crazy, and I probably wouldn't get the information that I specifically want. And that's the beauty with Podio, is that you can decide what apps you put into a client's workspace. So you can ask them the questions that you want to ask them and have that information available there to both of you. My clients absolutely love it. I also set up an app because a lot of times my clients were wondering where they were with the prepayments that they made, and they wondered how much they still had left on their account. Well, I created a little app called Client Account. And so when a client makes a payment, for instance, we link it up to that sale and we put the amount in. And when we use time, we link it up to that appointment and we put that amount in. And then at any given moment, they can come in here and they know exactly how much they have left on their account. Another way that it cuts down our time in communicating with our clients, they can just go in here and see exactly where they are. And now, if I want to get a global sense of where we are on this project, I can simply go into the client sessions, and for instance, I can scroll down here and I can see that it's linked back to a project in the CRM. And if I click on it right here, again, because it's embedded, I can actually read the information from it. And I can see here that we're in the conceptual design stage. And at that meeting, I need to put the instructions in the Conversations app. Now, if I want to actually go to that implementation, I can click on that, and you'll notice that it actually moves me back into the CRM and puts me back into the implementation. And there we go. Now we have all the information about that implementation and what stages we're at, for instance, and where we are from a global view of that entire project. And when the project is completely done and the customer goes out to the website and fills out a client feedback form, we then attach that to the project here so that we can see the information about it. And let me show you where that is on our website. So when people are done with our projects, we send them to the reviews area where they fill out this web form. And that web form feeds back into Podio. So now we have a complete tip-to-tail system. So to finish up, let's talk about the Conversations app. In the way that we use the Conversations app in our company, we may receive an email back out in our email, and then we forward something into the Conversations app. And let me show you how you can actually do that. Email to app, and then you can get the VCF file and put it in your address book. And then whenever you send an email to that, it will create a new conversation here. What's really nice about that for me is that I may have received that email when I was out of the office, and I want to be able to link it up immediately to that client. I don't want to have to remember to link it up later, because the chances are I'll get busy and I'll probably forget to link it up. And so now I can go into Podio on my iPhone or my iPad, simply go into the Conversations app and link it to that person or that project or that opportunity or that estimate, whatever it needs to be linked to. And that is wonderful. Really love that. So let's go into an email and how, for instance, we might then respond back out to email, because there's a couple of different ways that we can work with the Conversations app. We can initiate a conversation pulling somebody into Podio, or we can initiate a conversation via email sending out from Podio, or we can respond to an email that was sent to us from email, pull it into Podio, but then respond back out to email. Let me give you an example of that. So here's an example of an email that we received from Kevin. The subject went into the result, and then the summary went into the summary here. Then what we did was we used something called Podio tools. If you go to podiotools.com, we were then able to send a reply back from inside of Podio. So we can see here's the email that came in, here's our response back to them, and then when he replies back, it goes right back in here. And of course, whenever he replies back and forth, we get these notifications, but it all exists inside of Podio. It's not outside of Podio. At least not for us anyways. For the client, they're still getting it inside of their emails. So that was one way of doing it, and basically on your end getting rid of email. Another way of doing it is using the Podio share item, where you share a specific item inside of Podio with somebody outside. And what they do is they get a link to go in, and now he can actually see this on Podio, and we can respond back and forth, and it all occurs here on Podio. Nothing's actually in email except if he has his notifications set up inside of his email rather than just inside of his browser or on his iPhone or his iPad. So that's another way of doing it. So let's add a conversation right now. And in this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send an email, and I'm also going to tell you a feature from Podio tools that will actually allow you templated letters. So for instance, example of an outbound email. And I want to send that to Kevin Smith's. And I want to have that linked up to Kevin. Now I want you to understand here that the contact block, okay, is different from the contact itself. The contact block, all it holds is the information about that contact. So it's kind of like a VCF card, or in this case, you can think of it as the to area of the email. That's the easiest way of thinking of that here. So example of an outbound email, I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to go up into Podio and use the Podio Tools reply feature. It's going to ask me for access into the system because Podio Tools now needs access to Podio. And now I can write my email. So I've written my email there, and I can attach any files or any attachments to the email and then click send. Now, one thing that's going to be coming up that I'm really excited about is you'll be able to create templated emails and be able to choose from those emails and pop them in here. I'm really excited about that. Can't wait for that. So now just let me click on send, and I'll show you what it ends up looking like inside of Podio. And I'm going to click on go there now to actually go to the item in Podio, and we'll see there's that email that I sent out. Now when he replies back, I'm going to get that message as an attachment here. And I've never actually left to go out to do email at all. And the neat thing about this is that it actually works also from the iPhone or the iPad. So I've pretty much taken you through the primary workflow that we deal with: creating an estimate, attaching it to people, having conversations, opportunities, sending out quotes, tracking the sales, implementing it, and then getting the client feedback. Now there is a lot more that we do with Podio. Today I just wanted to give you a taste of what was the primary reason that we switched over to Podio and how we actually use it to get our work done. I hope you really enjoyed this lesson today. And if you want to dive further into any of this, I know, for instance, that one of the next lessons that we're going to do is how do you not handle the CRM part inside of Podio, but handle more the client servicing inside of Podio and have your CRM inside of Daylight. I know that there's some of the members that want to learn that, so we'll be doing that. And if there's anything else that you want to learn, by all means, jump into the Academy Co-Creation community. If you haven't yet, enter your story there so that we can get to know who you are. It's really easy to do. Just jump in and click on Add My Story, and then it'll ask you some questions. And if you feel like showing us your face, you can upload a photo so that we can get to know you. And most importantly, lesson proposals. So if you would like to propose a lesson, just click on Add Proposed Lesson, and it will ask you some information about the lesson that you want to see. Now, once a lesson is in here, you can actually go into the lesson, click on the expand pane, and once you've done that, you can vote for it. So you can vote a lesson up or vote a lesson down. Now, if enough people have voted on a lesson and it is the most popular lesson, that is the next lesson that we'll produce. So you guys are entirely in control of the Academy, you the members. This is a perfect example of how Podio can make you more collaborative. For instance, we're more collaborative with you now, and we've empowered you to tell us what it is that you want to learn. Now, we won't always be able to produce a lesson, or we may have to produce other lessons first in order to get to that lesson, but we'll definitely move in that direction. So together, we're creating the community. That's why we call it the Academy Co-Creation Community. So again, I hope that you really enjoyed this lesson, and I hope that we helped you reach beyond where you are and help you get a little bit closer to where you want to go.